I also ask you to warmly welcome Professor Ramon Lewis. Thank you.
What I can say is that the schools that were most successful of the last group that I saw were those where people like yourself went back, played with this stuff for about 4 months, 5 months, and then were able to, hang on, that's not mine. That's probably why it's no good. And were played with this for a while, and then when they were personally convinced, interesting, oh there it is, of the usefulness of some of this stuff, and I mean personally, not because they had read about it or they had heard me talk about it, but they'd actually done stuff with it. Once that had got to the point of that, they were then able to, I think, successfully convince others there was something worthwhile in all of this. Now, last time I did this, I wish I could see this, last time I did this I was in the position of being a bit naive because I wasn't sure it would work. I knew it would work in some schools because I'd tried it. That's interesting. As you can tell, I'm really enjoying myself. I've been with some schools for 11 years. St Paul's, for example, I have been for 11 years, and I knew it worked. The reason I knew some of it worked was because I'd been invited back. It's that simple. You know, in the sort of thing that we do, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And people aren't going to ask you to come back. So although I'd been doing research, just checking, although I'd been doing research, I hadn't had a chance to see it play out in a whole range of schools. I'd been you know, maybe up to 30 schools a year for one day, and certain teachers would play with it. But I hadn't thought about it in terms of long term until sort of, as I say, more recently. The reason I am in this project, I was supposed to retire a couple of years ago. The reason I'm in this project is because it is 3-4 years, and I think it's going to take that long. Having said that, I'm more confident than last year because I have seen 2 classrooms out of about, I don't know how many, potential classrooms that could be doing the same thing, where this stuff is being used really, really well. And I say that because my contribution is not to tell you what to do in a classroom. That's not what I do. I'm not qualified. What I can do is I can tell you what the research and what the sort of experience suggests is a good principle. So if I said to you, if you're going to use rewards, and you should, only reward effort. Don't reward behaviour. That's a principle. Okay, that's a simple principle. Why would you have a simple... What does it mean in practice is something you would have to figure out. So I can now say to you, that one simple principle is playing out in 9 different ways in different schools. And the creativity is not for me. People like me aren't creative. You know, we're linear, logical, sequential sort of people. We're not going to be the ones with the bright ideas of how to implement the idea of. So I've got some teachers who are having Thursday morning is let's see who's responsible day, and meaning that there are actually no rewards offered unless you need them, and the only way I'm going to know if you need them is if you need punishments as well. So we'll just play it out and we'll see who's responsible. And that means, because logically once you understand why you should do the right thing, you shouldn't have to be bribed to do it. Because if you're rewarding for effort, the effort decreases as your understanding increases. So ultimately there should be no reason to give you a reward of any kind. Now the only problem with her system is that she gets to know who's responsible, which means that they're getting social approval. And if she could figure a way around that, or if one of you can figure your way around how to offer kids the opportunity to work in a system where they do the right thing without need for social approval or without even access to it, would be a brilliant thing. I haven't figured out how because, as I said, I'm not creative. But maybe you will. So the whole principle here is that you're going to take, if you're interested, some of these principles and play them out in reality. Now, it's much easier to play these out in primaries, and you'll see the research suggests the same thing. But just to start with, I want to show you some research which came out last year. There are, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 things that are going to affect the outcomes in your classrooms, right? The first of those is the student's own personal characteristics. The second of those is, now that means if they're a second-born or a firstborn, it's going to make a difference. Okay? Firstborns strive to achieve, second-borns do whatever the firstborn doesn't. So, you know, it just makes a difference. So that's already one thing you've got no control over. Then there's things that go on in the home. So some homes are going to be very high demand homes, some are not. Then there's things in your school, everything from cracks in the wall through to resources and school-wide policies and so on. And then there's you. You sort of control the interaction in the classroom. Now, you are facilitated by administration. So it's really, when they divided this variance, they did it unfairly. They've left out the facilitative aspect of school administration in this analysis, which is a shame. But having said that, doesn't matter. You still do what you do, and what you do has an impact. So if I were now to yell at somebody, that would have an impact. So the question on your table is the following. Allot proportions, meaning this is an amazing concept because we're saying on average across all the outcomes of education, across all the kids you're going to come across, how powerful are you? Now, we know for some people you're going to be immensely powerful, meaning that you're going to change their lives. And you know that because you read The Age and they say, yeah, I remember that primary teacher who thought I was worth something and all that sort of stuff. So we know it's true. And there's some kids you're hardly going to touch. So, but on average, and this is a huge average because this was a study of 500,000 studies. And that means each study had so many teachers and so many classrooms and so many schools, so it's an enormous sort of piece of work. But the question is, if we took your percentage, what is it? What's your percentage, do you think, on average? So, see if you can negotiate it on your tables, if you would, and see what we come to. So, what do you say? How powerful are you? Who wants to have a guess? Now, we've already had some really smart comments, of course, which say, but hang on, is this primary or secondary? And what about different cultural settings where the cultures are well defined and the kids are pretty prescribed, you know? They're not going to change rapidly just by coming into a school. And these are all true. The studies that I've seen haven't made those distinctions yet. You're ahead of the game. So these are just sort of mass comparisons. And only in the last 8 years have we even had the statistics to do this sort of partitioning of variance. So it's sort of relatively new stuff. So what do you reckon? How powerful are you? No. What number? Pick a number. Pick a range. Who?
Out of 10?
Out of 100%. Out of 60%, you carry 60% of variance? No, more or less. Yeah. You'd be 70 and 80 on average. Hang on. Think about this on average. On average means that if the average is 70, then it would range from 50 to 100.